All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Relai Bitcoin podcast. Today, with a very special episode. I know I always say it's a special episode, but this time it is a special episode because not only the guests are special, but also the format is a bit different. It's not me talking to or interviewing some cool Bitcoin expert. It's more kind of a reflection on the Relai founder story. We have been around for 2.5 years on the market, and this whole journey started even 1 year earlier, I would say. So for 3.5 years, we're now kind of doing this. And when I say we, then usually what you guys think is, oh, it's Adem and Julian, the two co-founders, classic, startup team, CEO and CTO together and starting something with a very low amount of money. And now it has become this great venture-backed startup success story with 20 people and so forth, which is kind of true, but it's not the full truth because there were actually two founding angel investors or two additional co-founders that are really in the background and not talked about a lot. And one of them is now here. Lars Diener-Kimmich is actually one of the very first supporters, the first angel investor, and to this day a board member and a co-founder, and also my coach. And this is very, very nice that he takes the time to be here and talk to us. So maybe Lars, in addition to that, if you want to say some words about you for people that don't know you yet, then and you, if you want to get things started a little bit with like where this story began for you from your perspective.
Yeah, hey, very cool to be in this podcast. I think you and I, we've had disagreements on how long back when it started, but right now I'd probably be saying my feeling is roughly 4 years. You're probably going to correct that to 3.5 years. At that time, I was the CEO of Be Advanced AG, which is the Bernese innovation agency for small and medium enterprises and startups. You were participating in a competition, a rather local competition, to be writing a business plan, business case. And for some reason, you picked me as your coach for your team. And maybe you'll have to help why you did pick me. And that's, I think that's how we first met, right?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you want to throw in why you picked me or how went about.
So two things on that. The timing, I am super, super sure, and I can get the records of this if you want. But it was summer 2019. So
Perfect. We got that straight.
it's not even 4 years. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
3.5 years when this was really still a pitch deck, like nothing. And about 1 year later, in summer 2020, we got started. Adam, you know
cool.
this because it was also the birth of your son, so you will be super sure that it was 2020 when we went live with the app, and around 1 year before, this is where we met at this startup competition, right?
So actually, this
Right.
speaks for the project. Feels like we've been working on it. We've got stuff done in 2.5 years that feels like we've been working for 4 years. And I think this is pretty special on this project. The speed and the volume are sort of the progress and the traction we've managed to do. So, all right. So
Yeah,
my
that's
question back to you is, why did you pick me? Because
so
I have no
this was
clue about Bitcoin.
this was not a super well researched kind of sophisticated decision. It was just like you like first sight I did get this pool of experts, maybe 10, 15 experts, and you were the only one that just felt interesting to me. I didn't want to have a banker. Like there were these kind of old white man kind of bankers with their suit and ties, and I was like, no, that's not a good fit. And then some I don't know, a McKinsey consultants, stuff like that. It didn't feel right, and you were the only one that actually had startup experience, and you were already a CEO at this innovation platform, or agency, which I found interesting. But honestly, it was a matter of looking at your picture and short bio, and I think I went to your LinkedIn CV, but that was really like a 5-minute decision. I mean,
All
it
right.
turned out very well.
So looking or trying to keep the viewers in mind, I think they might be wondering, what did you see in the LinkedIn on the bio? Of course, you could say, go check out my LinkedIn, but I think this might help you just find out a bit who I am, what I'm doing. Like Julian said before, I just turned 50. I studied at the ETH Zurich, so I'm an engineer by training, but I also keep saying I'm also an engineer who's never managed to write one line of code that was correct. So I tried, I think, 3 lines, that's it. And I've always liked this, the two sides, technology and what it enables us to do as human beings. And I really love human beings, so don't, just leave them be with technology. It's just so I'm always trying to find this. How can this mix together? So my way took myself through a startup. I was unemployed. I worked for ABB. I've worked for Nokia. I had a beautiful time at Swisscom, our local national telco provider. Looking back, I think people would say I'm a pioneer in all these innovation programs, where it was a lot more enabling people working on innovation methods, and very soon starting also to think and work on leadership topics. And I bring it to the table, at least in terms of diplomas, I bring expertise, I think, on the whole innovation design thinking topic and also on the lean and lean leadership topic. So this is a combination I've loved, always building bridges between small improvements in large numbers to cool projects in limited numbers, and then disruptive startup projects in 0 or 1 numbers. So this is sort of the scale of projects that I've loved to do. And I've been independent as with my own company, so I'm sitting in my office here at home, which has been my home office before the pandemic, etc. And this is my 9th year. I'm just starting my 9th year as an independent innovation coach. I say I'm a coach, an entrepreneur, and I'm a pilot, a paragliding pilot. And I think we came across because I like to coach talents. And talent to me does not have an age tag immediately. But again, we have an age difference of 20, you, Julian, and I think you're a little bit older than Julian.
Yeah.
And I was just that when you approached me, it's about getting to know each other. I think this is something we've shared. If you want to get to know people, you got to work with each other. And I think this has been just a beautiful ramp up, including Adam, very, very soon on let's work, let's see how we tick, let's see how you respond to my input or my questions, because I'm not knowing in your Bitcoin space. And I realized I don't need to be. My role is a different one. I see myself helping to identify what's the next challenge, the next hurdle, or the next risk. If you're talking about, running lean, Ash Moria, de-risking your business model, and helping to stay focused, and that will then create speed. And going back to the competition that time in Bern, I remember you pitching in the finals. You made the finals with the project. I came also to the finals, and you're winning 3rd place among all these medtech companies that were working on something high-techy, etc. And somewhere in the medical space, you had a hard time understanding what they were doing, and it was going to take 5 to 10 years to do. And there's this Julian jumping around. If people didn't know, they'd think he's 21 years old. And he said, well, Bitcoin is cool. Bitcoin is something for everybody. You should try it. And I think that was a really cool start. It's a couple of $1,000, I think. It was on the check. And there wasn't a company. There was just a really cool project that you guys had been working on, I think, and when you met in a hackathon.
Hey everyone, this is Anna from Relai. I want to tell you about Relai Private. It's our exclusive service for private clients, family offices, and small and medium-sized companies looking to buy or sell large amounts of Bitcoin. As a Relai Private client, you have a full team focusing on your needs. A dedicated account manager guides you every step of the way. You also get personalized 24/7 support and gain access to exclusive reports and industry insights created by Relai. If that sounds like something you or somebody you know should check out, click the link in the description or head over to relay.app/private.
Yeah, but one thing that's always interesting to me, and I actually don't really know it yet, is why did you feel this urge to stick around with the project? Because there was this 3-month period, I think, of this challenge that went on. Like it was, I think, 100 companies, and then there was a first pitch, and then some work on the business model, on the business plan, and some workshops, and some interaction with the coach. On a bi-weekly basis, I think we had calls, and then in the end we made the finals, and then there was this big party, and then that would have been it usually, normally. Why did you want to stick around? Because we then decided, or you actually wanted to have these monthly calls, And we did, and it was great for both sides. And then I think like 6 to 9 months later, round about 9 months later, you decided to write the first check into the company. Why did you want to stick around after the challenge?
I mean, your question is, did I stick around? I think I did not. I think you kept coming back.
Okay.
And I think this is key to understand that slight difference. I could not drag a talent over the starting line. The talent needs to be going forward. And this is what you've shown, both of you have shown from the beginning. You did have the drive. And to me, it seems, if I reflect back, there were a bit two phases. The one while I was coaching or being your coach, and that's where I'm just there. Come and call, ask me questions. I'll try to help. And then there was that phase I think you're reflecting to. I remember, and help me refresh that memory, but I think we've had talks about how would we go forward to really go bold? How would we think to do that in the US? And how would it work in the Swiss or even the local Bernese environment? And I remember us thinking, you know what, if we're really gonna go big, let's build like a big business plan. Let's go for, I don't know, we're throwing out numbers. Let's go get the first seed round of 500,000, etc. And, build it properly and really, just really be convincing. Let's show some, like a bold move, yeah. That was the third place, right, on the competition.
Yeah, these were the first 3K. Before you wrote the first check, or anyone wrote the first check, this was the first money that we actually got into our bank account.
Yeah.
No, we didn't have a bank account, we didn't have a company, nothing. We didn't
You
know
just
what
took
to
the
do, but
money.
it was this number, and it was fun. We had a big celebration this evening.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, very cool. So I remember that we were trying to think bigger than actually our cages here in Switzerland. And I think there was a moment of frustration where I realized, it's just not going to work that way. We need to, work in smaller chunks, etc. And hey, don't ask me in details what had happened. I think we did iterate. We were frustrated. Then you did get that job offer. Mm-hmm. And I think that job offer was decisive. I remember, talking a bit to my younger self in you, that I was just gonna, help you. I'm gonna push you at the when you're standing at the basin and swimming. I was just gonna tip you a bit, push you a bit in the back. Like, well, jump if you want to keep that job. And you were sort of like, I don't want to get into the pool. I don't want to get in. You could have made the money and you could have made a career, and you're probably wearing a tie now, probably driving your second Tesla, and think you're cool. And I think you're way cooler now. And and I think I like to develop people. And I think that was sort of the challenge, what I like to see you struggle. And it was a struggle with a lot of core energy in it. So there's a lot of substance to it. And then your decision came like, I'm going to go all in. And that's when I said, all right, I'm all in as well. But I wanted to see you. So I was prepping you to make a bold move, and you did. And that's when I was just convinced by then. I say, well, if, I mean, it's taking a bet, but that's in life. This is what life is about. Sometimes you're just going to go for it. And that's when I went for it. And I think that's when Adem, I remember, I'm hoping, you saw my memory loss that I've obviously shown before, but but this is where I started feeling Adem a lot in the project, because he was only going to go forward with Adem. And then I had Nick, that I brought along, who was he was not involved in the project. He was more like, I call Nick and say, listen, Nick, you've always dreamt of coming on board very early in a startup because the tickets are so small. And that's another side story, maybe fun, but Nick would have to be in here as well. And then we said, well, we have a little finance, and I'm a fan of scarce resources because scarce resources force you to take decisions. So if you have an abundance of 500,000 and you don't even have people to pay the salaries to, it's not going to help you take decisions. You're just going to be all over the place. And then and it's not like a 2-digit number of companies I've founded, not at all. It's a small handful. What I've known, but I've seen hundreds of companies and teams being formed, especially through my job of coaching startups, etc., and being around this sphere for many years. The moment people, smart people, for example, like the three of us, if we decide, wow, we're going to found our first company, all of a sudden, all of us for the next 6 to 8 weeks, we're going to be 100% busy on understanding legal terms like drag along and tag along and what's bad lever event and. I mean, stuff that's just, well, sort of standard for all of us. It's new because we're all smart people. We're like fish swimming after the bait. And what happens for 6 to 8 weeks, your productivity goes down to zero. And that's when I came in and said, and Julian found this simple agreement for future equity, I think it's from Y Combinator or something. And it sounds really great, but it's all legal terms, 13 pages of legal term. I grew up in a family of lawyers and I cross-read it and said, well, it's probably okay. None of you, I think, read it. And I said, I still don't like it. I want to push for something that's way more selective of whether we really believe in the project or not. And I was like, I'm going to rewrite a preamble on the first page because it was a Word document. So you can just do a page break and throw the stuff in the back. And I think we basically said, who are the 4 or 5 people on the project right now? What is going to be their contribution over what kind of timeline do we have? And we said there's going to be a time box of 10 weeks. And by then we're going to have a functional app in the App Store and Apple Store and the Android Store. And the moment our idea is that we'd be making a bit of a revenue cut, and as the revenue cut, we'd be starting to fill the funding money to then found a legal company. And I remember that we said, the moment we'd be funding a company, there's going to be a certain share split that we believe that, who should have how much of the pie. And I think the 5th point was the most important one that said something like, and everything we haven't thought of, we're going to, commit to solving constructively, which is probably the most flabbiest, unclear statement you could have in any kind of contract. And for me, that was really the point of proof whether we trust each other enough to start such a project. And whoever cannot sign that it would show that it's not going to work. And we all signed it the same day, and we signed it here. So that's where we were sitting. I think Adam wasn't traveling then because of the baby, but Julian and I, etc. So I keep saying we founded the company wearing socks. Or actually, we did lay the foundation stone of the project while just being barefoot in socks, in my home office where we were here. So.
I was gonna say, I don't think you wore socks because you never wear socks at home, but I did.
There. Yeah.
But yeah, this is what really strikes me is, and that proved to be true many times afterwards in investor discussions and in all the subsequent funding rounds that we did, is that the most important thing is that us, the founders, we believe so hard in it and put so much energy in it that this creates this movement going forward, and then others will follow or others will support. Whenever I would have been, and Adam, if we still would have been kind of undecided and we don't know if we want to go in or not, should we take this well-paid job or not? Should Adam go on with his agency, or should we really dive all in? If you don't get trust from any supporter, any stakeholder, any investor, if you're in this indecisive mode, only once you really take the leap and you believe in it full time and full-heartedly, then great supporters like you will follow. And so that's maybe where Adam can come in and say, what made you decide? Because you were a little bit older, you had basically a baby on
the way.
On the way. And
you launched at the same time, right?
Yes, they're a few days apart.
Exactly. So and before, I mean, you did well. You had your projects with your own agency, and everything went well. And then this project came along. It was not a perfect timing at all, like far away from being a perfect timing. What made you decide to kind of stick with this? I mean, we knew each other for a while already, but like, what was it that you said? Okay, let's go all in with way too few. Like we didn't have enough money at all. Not privately, not in the project. It didn't really make rational sense at this point for you to join it. But what made you decide to go all in on that?
Yeah, I would do it again, whatever the age or whatever how many kids I have. I think it's just the way I am. but it's just it comes all back together. And I love how you put it, Lars, with the scarcity, touching a point about scarcity, and that when the resources are scarce, you just make sure to find the best decision as soon as possible, because you just don't have the luxury to wait and take decisions and talk for hours and days. And I was actually just coming out of a project from two other guys who really had a lot of money. The only problem in that project was, like, the only thing that was not a problem was money. They had a lot of money and it didn't work. It just didn't work because they didn't have the drive, they didn't have the will, they were basically just spending money. And this goes really well with the scarcity point that you made, Lars. And here I could see clearly where it was going with you. So the main idea and everything came from you. First time I saw Lars, it was in this picture actually. And the first time we met in real life, it was after the launch. I couldn't even make for the launch party because I just had our son 2 days before. So I was not there, I was just part of the picture. But then we met with Lars maybe in August or September after we launched actually. And what made me stick to it is that I could feel how much we were ready, all of us, to just give in and to make it happen. And that's very important for me, to make it happen. It's a key word because technically everything is possible relatively easily. Just sitting in front of a computer for a few hours, you can create some substance. You can come up with ideas. You can even make it to a website and make it downloadable. But it just stops there. And then I would move to something else, next. But I could feel from you the drive, the will, how much you really wanted to bring this in front of the users. And this was very important. This is something that I never had in any previous project before. And I knew that this was the missing chain actually to make a project, at least potentially a project that could succeed, because if it stays there in my computer somewhere, it would have never gone out, and it could be the best Twitter alternative, whatever, but nothing will happen. Technically, yes, it will be the best, but nothing will ever happen, and it will be worth nothing. And I could feel this from you. I could feel this from Lars. Early on, getting into it and helping us and motivating each other. I like the fact that it was also not only the two of us, we were four. This is also it helped a lot and it was also during COVID. So nobody was going out, nobody was meeting anyone. So having these people around, sharing the same drive and the same willingness to make this to create something and to put it out there, this is all I needed. And obviously the idea was clear to me. It was out of question. I was already into the blockchain technology, trying to bring this to more and more people, making it easy. And when you came with this idea, the idea itself was just a direct match. So that was out of question already. And then on top of it, the combination of all of us with the drive and the willingness.
I believe that it might be interesting again for the viewers now to understand also why did I stick around in terms of remain involved next to just doing a little first. I think, Julian, you say that because you turned around towards other investors that this did significantly give signal. Some people may know me also a bit from the ecosystem, etc. So they're sort of like, hey, he's coming along. And that sort of helped open the gate. If I recall properly, to then do the first seed round or angel round, I think that went rather quickly because you had been talking to a lot of people, but they were all waiting sort of, again, for a lead investor, and then they would follow suit, and that went quite quick. And I think quite naturally, and I think this is Nick's role. Nick is not really rather involved. We talk with each other from time to time. But I did find myself a role which I liked a lot. And this builds on what Adam just said. You start seeing how the others click, and it sort of makes you click again, or click, and makes you want to stick around again. And what I liked so much, I just came sort of out of leaving that CEO role again, becoming again independent as being on my own. And I know what it means to be a CEO, especially if you're in a smaller team. It's just 22 out of 5 days, maybe you just have to do operational shit. And that's one thing, which is a lot of people don't know. And the other is, if it gets tough, you're alone. Because any relationship that you have in a business context, all your stakeholders, there's some burden to it. And I think that somehow struck a nerve with Julian, that I managed. For me, it was really cool that I could still remain involved in all the fun stuff that a CEO does, but I wouldn't have to do the actual work. And I had with Julian and Adam as a super cool duo, very complementary. With Julian, I had workhorses. I mean, these guys, they were just going to go for it. And I just think we did. I mean, this is about matchmaking, about dating, matchmaking, etc. Now, since we had worked together, we were really starting to establish a very close-knit relationship where I think I did introduce that format of a coaching format to Julian, say, we'll do one call every day, which is very simply said, in theory and in practice, there may be one day off, we don't do it, etc. And the other thing is, he said, we're not going to plan it in the calendar because, it may be a shift off, etc. But I think Julian, probably now, what is it, 2.5 years now? I probably say 3 to 4 calls a week. So do the math. So it's probably somewhere around 150 calls that we've done. And the call has a very simple opening question, and that goes, Julian, did we have a good day? ? And Julian knows that opening question. So the call starts like, well, I'm in a train. Yeah, I'm running home. Yeah, I'm just going for a walk. I want to go for a walk with the dog. Yeah, I have a bit. Let's do 3 minutes now, which we never did, by the way. It was always more. And Julian would then immediately be prepared on reflecting. So what we are doing is basically a stand-up, a retrospective, like where did he bang, or did you guys bang your head? Where's the challenge? And then with me, since I've been in that role as an operational strategic CEO, plus I do have, a bit in my backpack in terms of methods, ideas, experiences. It would usually be, I have this issue, I don't know, go forward. Do you have any idea? Or you maybe, how would you do that, etc. And this has been a routine, I think, that has added a lot of value to the whole project over the course of the last 2.5 years, Julian.
Absolutely. I really like these calls a lot, and they kind of solve problems for me without really me knowing it, because it forces me to reflect once a day or almost once a day. Kind of the first thing that pops up are usually the most important projects or problems or issues to solve. And just the sheer experience of, as you said before, 20 years more of experience, it's just super helpful for me. And I really think that young founders like Adam and myself, we do need, this is also a good quality I think that we have, is we know that we don't know, and we know that we need input to grow. We haven't done this before, so we take as much input as possible from other people, from coaches as well. So that's why kind of you are my coach, teaching me how to be a CEO, and Adam has his coach that he's working for a long time already, teaching him to be a CTO, and he's actually, Adam, this was also a very nice development story that you had, and I think, Lars, you also had a bit of a influence on that, pushing this directly or indirectly, that we should think, both of us should think about having a coaching relationship. So Adam basically from a developer to a lead developer became an actual CTO, right? If you want to reflect on that story, I think it's pretty remarkable as well what journey you did there.
Absolutely.
Yes, and I still remember the day you proposed it. You were like, oh, Lars is asking us, proposing us, not asking us, proposing us to get a coach, each of us, and to help us. I'm like, why do I even need a coach? It's not that I felt like I knew everything, but it was already something I never had a coach before. And usually the first thing, an approach to a coach is like, well, I'm doing my job every day. What is the coach going to help with? And then you introduced me to Muharrem, who is my coach, and I still remember also the first call with him. we were having a really bad day because we just released the bug and everybody was complaining. And I had this call planned with him, and I was just about to postpone it. I'm like, there are fires burning. I don't know. I have other things to do than to sit with this guy who I don't even know, talk about coaching for half an hour. And then I was like, okay, let's just do it. I don't know why. I still don't know what came to my mind, and I did it. I would still postpone it if I had to do it today. Yeah. And then I just started, and Moharam was like, well, calm down. Shit happens. That's the first thing he told me. Shit happens. And I'm like, okay, well, let's start. Then the first half an hour was so much eye-opening that then from then on, I just kept being in touch with him. He helped us in many things, more than just being my coach. And the good thing is that part. So we are ready to learn. We are willing to accept that we have weaknesses, and that's totally fine. It takes some time, like it's not easy at the first, when you first hear about it, you don't want to accept, because this means that you have weaknesses if you have a coach. But none of us are against. We are so much open to these things that we are ready to try. And if it doesn't work, we don't force it. And nobody was forced to have a coach. It was an idea, and it worked super well, because it's the first time I am also bringing a startup somewhere like here. There is no way I could know what it requires in terms of all the different hats that I need to wear during these 2 years and a half, and more to come now. So this was one of the best move I did so far.
And one of the main elements, I think, that made made this happen was that you were open to accept that, or you were making this shift, which most techie, like two things that you differentiate from other techies. Like you have a PhD in informatics and you know how to code, obviously. So tech talent is there, it's a checkbox. But there is a lot of tech talent out there. I think what makes you different as a co-founder and CTO, or what made you become a CTO successfully, is that first, you don't only talk machine language or code, you also talk human language, which obviously now is very permanent. You can have presentations, you know how to communicate and motivate, you communicate with people and motivate a team and build a team, and have it socially functional as well. This is super important, which most others already don't have. And then the second one was you were willing to give up coding, and you were willing to start delegating and leading, which is a super scarce kind of resource out there. I think people who know how to talk to human and are willing to do the whole tech thing, but mainly then go out and build a team and lead this team, coach this team, and delegate most of the actual tech work to this team. So I remember at the beginning, it was 100% tech for you. You were just coding for 3 months until we had the first version out, and 0% leading. Now it's probably, and I know this shift then happened from, you were still 80% coding, 20%. So you were like, I can probably keep going with 80% coding and 30-40% leading. And it was no. You mainly need to lead. And now
I recall that session. We did, and we were thinking about, there's a transformation upcoming from being a single tech to expanding to building up a team. And I remember asking Adam, all right, so in that newer role, how much percentage would you want to code and how much do you need to lead? And he's like, I should be leading about 60% and I still want to code about 100%. Now, Adam being not only smart, but also fast, and that's the second anecdote that I'd love to share here. And when you explained that, how you took in the idea, the hint of how about the coach, and then having that first call, etc. This is stuff that's been happening, and I've seen this repeatedly when you went through one of these, I call these development bursts. This happens in 48 hours with you. It's the first day, like, something's odd, 60 plus 100, that's not 100, something's wrong. So you go sleep once over and you're like, I got it figured out, it's got to be 40. And in order to go 40, I got to go try this thing out with this coaching, and then it turns out and you're off with it. And I think this is just a really remarkable quality that you bring to the table, next to what Julian said with you speak human language, which just makes it so much easier to work with. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then this also led to a couple of, bad, obvious. So in this journey, in these 2.5 years, obviously what you mostly talk about is the good times and kind of the highs. But we also had really, truly difficult phases to go through, beginning with launching a product out there with some first traction, but no money at all. So we had a couple of months where we had to bridge our own personal finances so that we could keep going with this, to other highs, obviously, when we had this Höhle der Löwen show, for example. I just found a picture here. This was also fun. It already feels like this is ages away, but it was just pretty recently in my head. But it's already more than a year ago when we were like the blue aliens there, the blue relay aliens in television. I also know that we had the big party after this because we actually did get the deal in the TV. But from that, when we thought like we are the greatest, we were just on television, Shark Tank, Höhle der Löwen, whatsoever. We just raised 2.5 million. We're the greatest guys. Like we're growing 30% month over month, etc. To again, and it's always the same. It's always highs and lows, where we then actually were shrinking and not shrinking, but like plateauing and not growing anymore. And it was super hard to raise our next round. We went out with way too high expectations and talked to 100 VCs and only got negative feedback. And we did have our fair share of tech problems and team building problems and regulatory problems, not getting our license as fast as we wanted to, shipping product versions that we were not happy with. Our users were not happy and ranting about us online. We went from a 4.9 star to a 4.3 star or 2 star or whatever rating on the App Store. So truly frustrating times again, where nothing seems to go right. It's really always an up and down, which is really, really crazy if you think about it in hindsight. But this is just startup, right? This is also probably how it's supposed to be,
Yeah, I like to say that there are ups and downs, and in like as an entrepreneur, ups are super high and lows are super low. It's just the way it is. And very small anecdote that is not much known is also the financial part of it. So yeah, you told the story where we got the first 20K or something to get started for 3 months, but then we had nothing again. So it was not just about the launch, and after a few months, and this is also the human part of Lars, and this is not something I'm hiding. I had to ask for some more money on the personal side to Lars. He gave me and he helped me in these difficult times. So it goes already when we started, it went far beyond just the business side of it, and there's a lot of human side involved, and this is very important. So that helped us to make it until today, and also Lars helping us a lot whenever we would have a few issues here and there, disagreeing on something, whether it makes sense or not, opening our eyes and making sure we are still in the right direction. But yeah, we had some lows, but it's part of it. Even at the time it feels super hard, but then you just enjoy them in the end. They just accumulate as a small plus in the end, even if they are bad.
I think, Julian, you're the one that studies psychology, so I think you're the most, in this call at least, you're the most qualified to reflect on why humans primarily remember the good things. And I think it's just been a very successful ride, but a very, very intense ride. I think we need to be aware. I think we need to be aware. I call myself, but it's primarily you and the team. You guys have been working so super hard, not in terms of just, spinning the wheel as fast as you can, but really the hard part is also about stopping, reflecting, readjusting, pivoting, taking tough decisions, clear decisions, then sticking to the decision sometimes takes more energy than just go, blah, blah, we'll do this, and that. Like Adem, you possibly also mentioned that earlier example, too much money, etc. You can just go, you don't have to be clear about it. Looking a little bit at the time, I just wrote down 3 things that I think might, from what we've talked about, and also, I don't know, I'll let you, Julian, to trying to wrap me up, is I think we did mention from Adam's example of how to get a coach. I think we need to talk a little bit more about what is a coach and what not. I don't like the idea of the coach is the more seniors, done it, been there, done that, you just go pull. That's more of a mentor-like thing. And in a topic like you guys or we are into, there's no one that can actually tell you how it's been done in the past and how you're going to do it so you don't copy it. So I'd rather think of a coach of somebody that will help you install a routine of reflecting. And, possibly, and I think you have that with Muharrem, I believe, to be a bit in that role as well. We have a couple of experiences, but I'm never interested in copying something and paste. I'm more interested in this has worked, understanding why it had worked and see how to apply and use it and then readjust it on the next project. And I like, instead of saying coach, I like to say co-pilot because that leaves you guys, each one of you, in the lead. And it always keeps me thinking when you, for example, travel to Sardinia on the Sardinia ferries, when you approach the island, there's some critical, sections of the course that any pilot will have to go through, but they bring the co-pilot on board just for a special occasion, then they leave again. You're always in charge. And I think that's a very, very important part. So I like, my role, I like to see myself as a leadership co-pilot and what it takes. And I think what it takes, and I think this is what I've been trying to impregnate Julian as early as possible in his role as a CEO. It's also about growing the team. And once that team is going to be super, 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 super big, you're going to be able to, the more you grow, the more you're going to delegate or give away responsibilities or accountabilities into other people in the team. But what will always remain at the CEO's responsibilities are values. That's the foundation of the enterprises. What's our purpose based on what values? Now, if you think about a boat, it has a keel, the lowest part of it, and you're going to put that keel onto solid values. None of us, I believe, could now be writing down exactly what the values are because that's sort of a statement you put on the wall. But I think all of us understand and live and sense these values. And I think I've been, from the earliest moment on, together with Julian and the core team, we've been really reflecting well on these values and making sure that we understand and live them, especially when hiring and also when letting people go. And I think this is where I came a lot in. I've hired quite a bit, I've worked with a lot of people, and that's again something to be a co-pilot, not a decision maker, because that's got to be you in your role to do that. So that was the team play, the hiring, and the core values. That's always a CEO, the ownership for the values, and make sure that the values are out there. And last but not least, and I think this may be interesting also for people listening in on startups or being on a board, I'm so close to what's going on because I'm involved on a daily basis. And on the other side, I'm also part of the board. So I can build a link from the strategic, tactical, operational team to the strategic governing body. I think that we both find very, very, helpful. Also, Julian being, still, I think you are still out, you own the most shares, but being the CEO, but the core stakeholder or shareholder in the company, you're also part of the board, but you're in a double bind there. So we need you in the board primarily as the CEO, and I can then also help flank, not Julian in the role as a CEO, but I can help flank the project so the board can have an easier access to it. And then again, we have a beautiful board, I think, an awesome board, where they're way better and smarter in many, many other things than I am. But then again, I can, give the life sense of what's going on in the projects versus just the reports and their numbers. And I think that's also quite exceptional. And I find our board exceptional good. I think it's an awesome board at the way we work.
Me too, and that's also for me. Everything is very new, right? And I have the privilege to see it all on all the levels, being in the day-to-day business as much as like almost 24/7 basically, but also being in this being in the leadership team where we have weekly exchanges, and also being in the board where we have quarterly exchanges only. There's a very different way of communicating things and phrasing things and thinking about things strategically, and also being a shareholder. And the shareholders actually meet on a yearly basis, right? So once a year in the General Assembly. So it's really like this from day to day to year that I need to juggle and handle. But this is very, for me also very fascinating, as this is the first kind of high tech, high growth startup that I'm involved in. So thank you guys. It has been an amazing session, and especially it has been an amazing journey the last 3 years, and I hope we will stay together on this project for a way longer time. And I hope you guys listening or watching us at home had the same pleasure than we had for the last 45 minutes to reflect a bit on the Relai story. And maybe we could have a second episode at one point where we don't reflect but have a bit of an outlook how this will evolve in the next 3 or 5 years. That would also be super interesting. Thank you guys for taking the time, and have a great rest of your day.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Cheers.